Hey everybody, just want to share a quick little insight from my study General Conference this morning. I was listening to the April 1934 General Conference, and Elder Levi Edger Young was speaking, and he was speaking about the obligation for parents to teach their children. And specifically, he was bemoaning the fact of how many parents are leaving all the education of their children to schools and to the church. And he's like, that's not supposed to be that way. That the home is supposed to be the center of learning. And then he uses some very vivid imagery, and one I loved in particular was he said that the home is supposed to be the cathedral of our spiritual life. And I just love that imagery because a cathedral is something that was generally a massive sacrifice for the people or for the kingdom that built it. And it was a symbol of their devotion to their religion. And it was something that they felt like they could build, that then people would look down through the ages and say, there's devotion. We look at cathedrals like Notre Dame. We look at things like St. Peter's Basilica or St. Patrick's or St. Basil's or Westminster Abbey. And we're like, wow, these are devoted people who built these things. And I love that idea that our home, and more importantly, our families, will be the cathedral of the Latter-day Saints. That it's not going to matter so much your local church or what temple is nearby. It is your home that will be that lasting testament to you and to your efforts in building up a righteous branch of Israel. And I really like that because for me, I look at it and I'm like, sometimes life feels crazy. Sometimes I look at all these things, I'm like, it feels like my home isn't quite what I want my home to be. But understanding that what I'm working towards, what I'm building is that cathedral, it is that monument. I hope that in 100 years, people can look back at me and say, he was a great-great-grandfather of somebody who did something important, or it's his son or his great-grandson, and like having a righteous posterity that stays true and faithful. That is my ultimate goal. Yes, work is great. Yes, it'd be fun to go do activities. But ultimately, my goal is to raise up a righteous posterity so that way I can have that cathedral of a family, an eternal family unit that I can look at and say, there is the cathedral of the Goths. That is the Goth legacy, is a righteous posterity. And I think that is extra sweet considering that my mother is a convert and that my grandma on my dad's side is a convert, that they literally laid the foundational stones of this cathedral. And now it's up to me to continue to build it. Much like one of the most famous cathedrals, the one that they're building in Spain, the familiar one, the one that's been built for 100 years. I feel like oftentimes the cathedral of our family is a multi-generational span. We are building a monument in our families and in our homes. And the key to that is understanding that the gospel is not learned at church. Knowledge is not learned at school. Those things are supplementary to what we do at home. Ultimately, the home should be the center of all learning for Latter-day Saints.